because one of its main misconceptions, and one of the things I can almost sense happening in people's brain, and it happens in my brain for a long time too. When I hear the word Tantra, my brain transforms it to sex, or people are like, Tantra, they think sex. And maybe the question is good to answer, like, why are these so interlinked? Because from what I was just explaining, I wasn't really talking about sex that much, as you might have noticed. So hi, my name is Dika, and you are listening to my podcast where I give you a look into my life as a former business consultant, now Tantra teacher and speaker. If you're interested in self-development and really receiving the education that you should have had growing up, specifically around your femininity, sexuality, love, and relationships, then you found the right place. It's here where I share my life's journey, which once was heady, numb, unorgasmic, and basically me trying to be like a man, all while shaming and blaming anything that actually made me a woman, just blindly following the path that society set out for me, to ditching my imagined corporate career, moving my ass to Bali, setting up my business, meeting and marrying my soulmate, and becoming a Tantra teacher. I'm now on a mission to make all of this feminine and tantric wisdom that I've gathered over the past years modern, down to earth, and easily applicable. And I work with you, smart, intellectual, successful, strong, independent woman, to balance out your powerful masculine side with more softness, surrender, playfulness, love, and pleasure. Basically, alivening and juicing up your daily and relationship life. If you're curious on how to work with me, then check out all the information in the podcast description. And for now, welcome to a new episode. In this episode, I answer a question I often receive. And if it's not being asked or said out loud, I know it's being thought. What is Tantra really about? And so I dive into this by giving you the 3 different meanings of the word Tantra and explaining how sex and Tantra are connected, but not the same. Also, I share 2 different Tantric meditations just to give you a feel of how to practice Tantra, how would that look, what to expect. And I share what Tantra in general has added to my life, how it changed my life, and how it could potentially change yours. So I would say grab yourself a cup of tea and enjoy. What is Tantra really? And when I say I receive this question quite often, it's maybe not that I even get this question asked like straight in the face, but I can hear it in people's thoughts when I talk about my work or when they ask me, what do you do for work? And so this happened the other day when I went to the dentist, and I had a little chat with her because we were discussing some dental appointments and things that I had to get done. And I was asking questions on timeline and really needed to know specifically how long things would take and how many appointments it would need to have and how many times I would have to be in the Netherlands for it, because I travel a lot for work. And on that information, she basically asked me like, oh, what do you do for work? And so then we kind of got started or talking, and I shared that I host or that I'm a Tantra teacher and speaker, and that I host a lot of trainings and retreats for women and for couples. And at that moment when I shared this information, and I quite often have this, so it's not very new to me, when I say the word Tantra, something happens. Like you can hear some things starting to click or twist or turn in someone's head. And it's not that I ever get a negative response, but it's more like this curiosity, this lamp goes on, and this sense of like, amount of judgments, assumptions, or however you want to call it, questions, I think mainly, start bubbling up. And I can sense that in a person. And what was really beautiful about this woman is that she was like, okay, but wait a minute. So you kind of got it. You kind of need to explain that. So like Tantra, like what? Basically, she was like, what is that about? But she was like, kind of like, but can you explain? So that got me to very briefly explaining to her what Tantra is all about. And she was like, wow, that seems so interesting. And I was giving her practical examples of how that applies into a relationship. And she kept on asking of like, but what specifically then do you do? What do you learn about? Can you really explain? And so I gave her some examples, and she got really intrigued. And so this sparked this episode or this me sitting down here to give you an explanation. Hopefully, that kind of gives like a real feeling, a real taste of what Tantra is all about and what it means to do Tantric meditations, what Tantric meditations are, some examples of those, and how it kind of changed my life and why I'm so excited and why I love teaching Tantric meditations and Tantra methods, because it really, really changed my life on a number of different aspects. Now, let's start off with the three meanings of the word Tantra itself. So, Tantra is a Sanskrit word, which means that words in Sanskrit often have more of a different flavor, different meanings to it, more of like a symbolism, mystical feeling and explanation to the word. So it really encompasses it. It's not just a word that describes a thing, it kind of gives a definition within the word itself. And so Tantra has three different meanings. One of those meanings is to weave, basically, to weave together of opposites to find the ultimate truth. So, weaving, you can think about a cloth being woven by horizontal lines and vertical lines. And that cloth or that tapestry cannot be woven, cannot exist with just only horizontal lines, because then it would just fall apart. And the same goes for just vertical threads, basically. It would also fall apart. So you need both the vertical and the horizontal. You need the opposites that can be yin and yang, masculine, feminine, the sun and the moon, dark and light, however in whatever flavor you want to pour it, because the world that we live in consists out of opposites, consists out of this duality. That's how this whole world kind of like moves and transforms and is alive, is because of that tension field between basically life and death. The fact that we are alive and that we know we will die one day, that creates a certain tension field. It creates an attraction. And therefore we have masculine, feminine, sun and moon, that creates an attraction. Because, for example, without the sun, we would only know darkness. So without the light, we only know darkness. But without the light, the dark wouldn't just be darkness. We couldn't really define it. It would just be one thing. And so we only know darkness because we have light. So this world consists of that duality, or it's believed that we come from this place of where we are basically one, where both of those two sides are integrated, where we become vast enough to hold all of those contradictions and really be present with that. Now, that is not a skill many of us have been taught, or something that's been really represented in this planet, because mainly what we have is just polarity of things. So a really extreme duality of this is right, this is then wrong. And that's the only way that it is. And people really distance themselves from each other instead of allowing those differences to be the thing that attracts us, that keeps us moving, that keeps us inspiring, that keeps us creating, that keeps us alive. And so one of those meanings of the word Tantra, to weave together of opposites to find the ultimate truth being basically, we call it enlightenment, or I like to describe it as this ultimate sense of like, aha, like really, like you might have experienced these moments in your life where suddenly everything just clicks, and there's just this sense of like nothingness, peace, but also just deep love and aliveness, that it just, whoa, it makes sense. Like it's even hard to put that specific experience into words, but you can call it like this ultimate blissful feeling, this ultimate feeling of fulfillment. And so to weave together of opposites to find the ultimate truth is that basically Tantra teachings support us in finding ways to weave together, to bridge these two opposites. And through that merging, through that weaving together, through that melting and bridging, we get this experience of like, aha, it clicks. And this is something I've personally really experienced through practicing tantric teachings and meditations. And why it resonated so deeply is because I feel that it really honors all aspects of myself. It honors these aspects within myself that are sometimes feeling so opposite, so contradictory, so far away, removed from each other, and finds ways to allow those two to come into a space of balance. And so specifically between my inner masculine and inner feminine. I've really found that through tantric meditations and teachings, I've come into this space where I start to understand how to bring these two together, how to create this dynamic balance between the two, to find this ultimate understanding of like this ultimate truth of this is who I am. And so instead of me just having to be masculine or now only having to be feminine, neither of those two experiences, and I've tried, made sense in its fullest. Like aspects made sense, but only when I started bridging the two, balancing the two out, that's when things started clicking and I really felt like I was coming home to myself. Now, the second meaning of the word tantra is turning poison into nectar. I love this description and I love the visualization that I get when I see this. Really, this transformation of something that we consider poisonous in something really like yummy, a beautiful lesson, aliveness. And so, how this is represented in tantric teachings is, for example, that we work with topics that we consider more poisonous or shameful or like something we shouldn't be talking about or something we tend to stay away from within society, within cultures, which is, for example, sex and sexuality, around emotions. We don't really talk about the topic of power. Well, there's constantly all these power struggles and war in the world. So basically anything that we consider like muddy and heavy and dark or shameful or just that we actually want to like stuff away. In Tantra, what we do is actually shine light on it and bring awareness to it, play with it through different meditations, and through that, allow it to be turned into nectar, allowing it to become integrated within our own being, that it becomes part of who we are, part of our like aliveness again. So the nectar, you can be seen as this yummy feeling, this aliveness, knowing that there is in that sense no such thing as poison if we shine light on it, if we bring it into awareness. So one of those examples which I was just giving is emotions. So think about anger. In this society, we've been taught that anger is dangerous, that you can't be angry, you shouldn't be angry. I was definitely taught not to express my anger or be angry at all, and just to be this nice girl, this good girl, this people pleaser. And when I started understanding that, instead of having to press away my anger and seeing it as something bad, and then sometimes I would actually suddenly explode or suddenly get really, really fiery, and I would get confused with myself and shame and blame myself for that. And I shouldn't be reacting that way because that's bad. I started to explore and play with methods and practice methods that would allow me to really embrace this part of me that is sometimes angry, that, I don't know, is a human and has feelings and experience sometimes crazy amounts of rage and fire and just like raw. And that is not something to be afraid of. That's not something to run away from. That's not something to stuff away or see as bad part of myself, to judge it like that, but instead bring awareness to it, transmute it, transform it into that nectar. And through that process, through that alchemy, getting insights, learning from it, gaining clarity, and then being able to integrate that back into my life, into my work, into my relationships, or wherever that anger was triggered. So turning poison into nectar, that's another meaning of the word Tantra. Lastly, the third meaning is methods of meditation, methods of transformation. So this basically means that Tantra in general is not taught just through like giving theory, giving a belief system, like this is how it is and this is the only way. This is what you need to believe, and here's more wisdom and knowledge and words for you to just like focus on, and that's what you should. That's the answer. That's the final truth. No, Tantra is taught through methods. So there is like hundreds of tantric meditations or methods that all have a focus or a different intention or a different basically topic that they work with. And through practicing the method, you get your own inner wisdom. So, in this way, what Tantra does, and which I found super empowering, is that it's not basically stuffing you full with knowledge and with a way of thinking, and that's what you need to believe. No, it actually invites you to really cultivate your own inner guru, to really cultivate your own inner wisdom, your lived experience, your embodied experience. And through that, you become actually empowered. And so it's not just someone that has been telling you this is how it is and that's where the wisdom comes from. And so you have to follow that person and you're kind of dependent on that person. No, through practicing tantric meditations and these methods, you're living through things, you're experiencing it within your own being, within your own body. And so through that, you cultivate your own answers, your own inner wisdom, because in the end, like you have your own answers. Like the answers to the questions that you're asking yourself are inside. They're not anywhere outside. They're not written in a book because they will always be written by someone else's experience. And you can still learn from that and be inspired, yet you'll have to find your own truth within. And that can only be done if you live through it, have the embodied experience, bring awareness to certain subjects and patterns in your life and transform it, learn from it, and keep creating and keep transforming yourself. And so these methods of meditation or methods of transformation, however you want to call it, they often involve doing something with your body. Now, I know this can be quite difficult to grasp or to understand, but imagine how you have most likely learned many things within high school or within your university education or whatever kind of education. Most likely you were sitting, listening to a lecture, and having to do exercises which involved writing with a pen, putting words on paper, calculating things, doing stuff with your mind, kind of like stimulating your intellect. And through words and through discussions, you would talk about certain subjects and dive in and understand theoretical frameworks. And so this is mainly how we learn. Like we read and then, oh, we have a new insight and maybe we apply it in a way. And so it's this specific part, this application, the actual implementation, that is basically what happens straight away in a tantric meditation. So because now instead of you listening to, for example, me talk for an hour about anger, which I could easily do, I'm super inspired by, and you might be inspired and have these moments of aha and become more aware of these things and things you never realized within yourself of like, oh, okay, interesting, there might be some truth in there. So it might start a certain process, but then you most likely end up on a spot where you're like, okay, but what do I do now? So now I suddenly am more aware that, yeah, maybe I am pretending not to be angry, but I'm holding on to a lot of that energy inside of myself, try to numb and stuff it away. And it doesn't really help because now I'm just some sort of people pleaser. So instead of being in that spot, it's like, okay, well, what to do now? Like, how do I change it? How do I transform it? And this is where our method comes in, because the transformation will happen within the method itself. And from there, the more you practice it, that's why also a lot of these methods are actually timeless, which I love, because every time I learn about a new tantric meditation, I feel like I feel empowered, but I also feel like I have a tool in my toolkit that I can keep using for the rest of my life, where I can keep getting some juice out of, where I can keep practicing and always get a new little insight from a different angle, because now this day I was feeling like that, and you're never the same each and every day. So you always get some sort of new insight or download about yourself. And also trusting that when you practice the methods, the transformation, the alchemy is happening within your body. And from there, your reality will start shifting automatically, because you're clearing out and breaking down some buildings and building blocks that are actually not serving you anymore. So then to dive a little bit deeper into, okay, meditation, because I use that word quite often here and there in the sense of, okay, practicing methods of meditation, practicing Tantra meditations. What does that mean? Because I remember when I met my partner, and specifically, he was taking me to a Tantra retreat, and I was asking, okay, but what are we going to do? Like, how does that look? What kind of, what can I expect? He's like, well, we're going to be practicing tantric meditations. And I was like, well, but what does that mean? Like, how do I visualize how that looks? Like, what can I expect? It doesn't say anything for me. So practicing tantric meditations, what I had in my mind was like, okay, wait, because meditation, the only thing that I knew about meditation was, okay, sitting in cross-legged position, spine straight, close your eyes, and just go inwards and become aware of your thoughts and try to not be attached to your thoughts and just focus on your breathing and try to relax like that. And so for me, it was very confusing. So wait, we're going to be sitting in meditation position like that for the entire week. That it was hard to understand. But eventually, doing the actual exercises, I got to see that, okay, a tantric meditation, it can be actually an active meditation. It could be a silent meditation where you're asked to just sit in silence and really work on your ability to be present with things and not take things so personal or react. So for that, it's really beautiful to cultivate this skill of being able to sit in stillness, because it will support you in your life, in your relationship, to not be so reactive and not to like jump on everything that your partner says or take everything so personal. So silent meditation is, for example, one of those methods. But there are so many other meditations out there, which are often more active in nature, meaning that you are actually moving, jumping, dancing, acting, playing with your body, with sound, with using your breath, with movement, that help you tap into different topics. So, for example, I will give let's say 2 different methods, because normally we don't really reveal the methods too much, because taken out of context and when you don't actually experience it in the moment, it can sound just a little weird and be like, what the fuck do I do with that? I'm not sure if that's useful. And sometimes it repulses people. So in that way, when you're having the idea or the experience that sometimes Tantra sounds so like mystical, there is a reason in a way for that, because when a method is introduced, it's really important that you just go and try it out. It might be not your method, but at least try it out and then you'll see, instead of let your mind judge it and be like, that's not going to be for me. Because your mind is probably most of the time going to be slightly weirded out about tantric meditations. And that's not because they're like crazy weird or whatever. Oftentimes they're actually so extremely simple, but it's more because the mind is freaking out, because the mind doesn't like change and likes how things are. So it will try to keep you stuck. And through tantric meditations, you'll put things in movement. Transformation is guaranteed to happen. You're letting go of old pain patterns and stuff like that. And the ego is built up of these old pain patterns. And so it doesn't want to crumble. So it will fight and put up resistance through judgments, through whatever excuse there is in the book, not to actually go and do it. But I will still give a little bit of an example, because I think it's nice to understand even better what it could look like. And again, knowing that there are so many different kinds of methods. There's actually one beautiful book called The Vigyan Bhairav of Tantra, which includes 112 tantric meditations. And this book consists out of a story between so-called Shiva and Parvati, or masculine and the feminine, where the feminine was asking questions to the masculine about love, life, and relationships. And he was answering in a sutra or a poem, basically in a method. So he wasn't answering her questions with like, oh, let me be the wise one, these are the answers to your life stories or life questions. It's like, no, if you're curious about this aspect within relationship or aspect within love or within your sexuality, then practice this method and find out for yourself. And so this specific book describes 112 different methods, and really apply to all kinds of different aspects of life. So from a meditation focused on eating, to a meditation focused on sexuality, to a meditation focused on emotion, to meditations focused on like your intuitive sense and your third eye, focused on sound, focused on, and I can continue like this. So this is another aspect that I find personally so beautiful about Tantra, and why it resonated so deeply for me, and why I love practicing these methods and meditations, and why I've learned so much about myself and transformed so much, is because basically Tantra doesn't deny any aspect of the human experience. So when we look at different spiritual traditions or different spiritual teachings, they're often are a few subjects that are being denied, which are often the more human and dense and like physical, really like raw animal kind of experiences, which are around sexuality, which are around emotions, which are around power. And so within Tantra, none of that is denied. Like there's no aspect of the human experience which is not considered, which is not looked into, or which is not like shown light on. So there's no method, like basically for all aspects of being human, there will be a method for you to practice and to transform, to learn more about this aspect within yourself. And so that means that basically Tantra embraces everything, sees and teaches you to see the light, your life, your body, your own energy system as a whole. So all parts of you are welcome. Everything is loved, everything is accepted. We can embrace all of these aspects, and it basically helps you to reclaim some of those lost parts of yourself, which maybe through society or conditioning or through trauma were kind of like denied, pressed away, and stuffed in a little far corner of yourself, never to be looked at or never to be like done anything with. And so this leads to us often experiencing this like lack of unfulfillment, or this feeling like we can't really be ourselves. So within like the past years practicing so many Tantra trainings and methods and retreats, I've come to reclaim so many aspects of myself and starting to feel so much lighter. It's almost like I was wearing, have you ever seen one of those Michelin puppets, which has like so many different coats? And basically as if I've been removing coat after coat after coat after coat, so that it's like I just become more myself. All of these parts were already inside. It's not that I had to like take it from somewhere else and put it inside of me. And all of these parts have been here. I just have to I started uncovering them. I started taking off the baggage that I was carrying, which was covering up these parts within myself so that they could naturally just allow them to be there. So there is this also this sense of like, how do you say, effortlessness. It might be like some of these methods, there might be a lot of resistance. It might feel like challenging and vulnerable. And so it might feel difficult or like effort in that way. But at the same time, there is this sense of effortlessness because many of these subjects are just not natural to your being. Like when you got born, many of these subjects weren't a problem. Like you were not ashamed of your sexuality or afraid of having your heart open or not in touch with your emotions. You were just an open, beautiful, loving, accepting being. Over time, the way that you were brought up, conditioning, you name it, experiences, there might have been like little jackets that you started putting on. And so it just helps to unravel those. Okay, so coming to this point of where Tantra embraces all of you, and therefore there being all these kinds of different methods, I'll share with you the shortest Tantra meditation that is out there. It literally takes 4 minutes. It's a method that takes 4 minutes. It's a method that is designed by a master, Tantra master called Osho, who is not in his body anymore, but he is from India and has many teachings and many methods that he designed and created. And he was definitely one of those teachers that really was not afraid to shy away from really diving into the most crazy, dense topics of humans. So around sexuality, but mainly also around emotions. Many spiritual traditions avoid that subject because it's what to do with that. So this specific method is around joy and laughter. And the method is to be ultimately practiced 20 days in a row, or 21 days in a row. So it's like a 21-day challenge. And he advised often to do tantric meditations in a sequence like that, to really get the nectar out of it, to really get the message, the download, the wisdom code that you need from that method integrated in your system. And so I actually have personally done this meditation for 21 days in a row, and it was like really transformative. And it's basically consists of the second that you wake up in the morning. So the instant that you feel like, oh, I'm waking up, you start stretching like a lazy cat for about 1 minute. So that means just kind of like for stretching out, like exploring your body. Kind of sometimes you might do that actually already when you're waking up, and it can feel really nice to start like, stretching your body and be this in this moment of like, whoa, I'm awake, I'm alive again. And after about 1 minute of stretching like a lazy cat, you go into 3 minutes of laughter, really loud laughter, belly laughter, basically, for no particular reason. And after those 3 minutes, your meditation is complete and you can start your day. And so for 21 days in a row, this is how I would start my day. Now, at the same time, I was sleeping with my partner. So inevitably, he actually ended up joining because, well, like when one of us wakes up, the other one too. And so we decided actually to do it together and to then just trust, okay, if one wakes up and starts laughing, the other one most likely is going to wake up too. So that's your cue as well. So you wouldn't doubt that. And specifically what it brought me, but it might bring you something else and you might actually want to try it now you hear it. But this is just one of those examples. And it sounds maybe a little bit ridiculous, like, wait, belly laughter for no particular reason. What's that going to get me? And that's kind of weird. And I don't know what to do with that, or how to do that, or anyways, awkward. But when you surrender to the method and you just try it out, what I found is that it's such a powerful start of your day to go into belly laughter. The first thing that you wake up, not questioning how you woke up. So because basically it invites you to go into belly laughter, no matter if you feel grumpy waking up, whether you feel turned on waking up, whether you feel sad waking up, still it invites you to go into belly laughter. And now what belly laughter does is that it creates this sense of, aliveness, playfulness, but it also prevents you from being able to take things too seriously. And it helps you to actually become more present with life, starting to see the joke, the game of this life that we're playing, of this constant play between opposites, how one thing makes sense one day, the next day you totally feel different, of this constant like play of this like what is going on. And if you really are able to look at your life from that kind of zoomed out playful laughter perspective, everything will start to feel lighter. Starts to feel lighter. I became able to like accept and love wherever I was at more, because I could laugh in any given moment. Also, it felt super empowering to just be able to really drop into laughter and activate through that also a sense of joy and aliveness, no matter what, no matter how I was feeling. And sometimes it was easier than others, but still it was a beautiful skill to practice. And I can still sense that positivity and that capability to let go of things, to see it less heavy, to laugh about it, to be like, oh my God, how the fuck does this make sense? It doesn't make sense, because when we're thinking about opposites and the fact that, okay, this can be true one day, the next day something else is true, like how do I contain that? Is only through just seeing that it's one big joke. That's how you are able to contain all of these contradictions within your life, within your own being, is not by trying to understand it logically with your mind, because that ain't gonna work, never gonna work. Because for your mind, there's only one thing that's right, the other thing is wrong. Otherwise, its filing system doesn't work anymore. So the only way to find that sense of acceptance and to find that sense of presence with life and with yourself is through taking it less seriously, to see the joke, the game, to play with it, to just move with it, to embrace whatever is here on this day. So this is an example of literally a 4-minute method. And I'm always baffled where it sounds, again, to me, it's like so simple. It's like it has two components. It takes 4 minutes. It's basically nothing. It's like almost, how can that be so powerful? And I invite you to try that out. So hopefully this gives a little bit of an example of what a tantric meditation could be like. Again, so many different methods. So that's why I give you one more thing to think about, which is more around sexuality, because this, of course, is something that I'll have to dive into when I talk about Tantra, because one of its main misconceptions and one of the things I can almost sense happening in people's brain, and it happens in my brain for a long time too. When I hear the word Tantra, my brain transforms it to sex, or people are like, Tantra, they think sex. And maybe the question is good to answer, like, why why are these so interlinked? Because from what I was just explaining, I wasn't really talking about sex that much, as you might have noticed. So then why does Tantra and sex are like so linked together? And why do they come hand in hand seemingly in society, in whatever you see out there from about Tantra? So the reason for that being is, well, remember that I described this book with these 112 methods. And some of those methods, I think it's like, I believe it's about 6 of the 112 methods or something. So anyone that can do fast maths, that's like a little percent. So it's not that Tantra is all about sex, yet it does include sexual practices and meditation around sex, because we don't deny any aspect of the human experience in Tantric teachings. But because when the Western world found these teachings, found this book, found these methods, and it started seeing, wait, there are sexual practices too, they basically stamped it as the cult of sex. That's how quickly that went, because it was such a repressed topic, because sex is not taught basically anywhere, very limited. And so that also means that for many of us, because it's part of our human experience, like we all will be faced with our sexuality in one shape or another during this lifetime. And therefore it brings up curiosity, because we as humans want to understand ourselves. Like it's part of our being. So it feels unnatural to have to hide it away. But if society basically tells us that that's what we should do, it starts creating this hidden energy that starts lurking underneath the surface, not knowing like where its way out is. Like it starts creating these games, these drama plays, which is often what happens around sexuality. I would say most drama and pain happens around the topic of sexuality, around misunderstanding between men and women around this subject, within relationships, around like not being faithful, you name it. A lot of drama gets created around sexuality. And the main reason for that being is that we just don't have a proper education. And so we're just kind of like fumbling around in the dark, trying to like also climb out of like shame monsters, or however you want to visualize this for yourself. And so that means that there is actually a very deep desire to learn about sex, to understand sexuality, because it's one of the subjects where we barely have access to any information or proper education. So then here comes suddenly a spiritual teaching or a book that talks about sexual methods. Obviously, that's where a lot of the focus goes to, because that's where a lot of hidden energy is stuffed in a box that suddenly is like jumps on that and is like, I want to know, oh my God, and has a lot of judgments around it at the same time, but also a lot of curiosity. And so here is where the focus on Tantra being sex kind of originated and came from, and why that's still very present, where, okay, people have problems with their sexuality. They might have tried a relationship coach. They might have tried a sex therapist, but eventually they often end up in Tantra teachings because they have problems within their sexuality, or something that they don't understand, and there's basically nowhere else to go. And so here you go. Now, at the same time, Tantra offers a sexual education, which is also, or a perspective on sex, which is not just masculine, not just feminine, but both. So it basically creates a very fulfilling, full circle kind of perspective on subjects, because it involves and includes both of these aspects. So it includes and it honors both the masculine and the feminine equally. And so remember, like weaving together of opposites to find the ultimate truth. So it would always work with opposites, honor both, and understand that we need both the vertical and the horizontal lines. We don't need kind of like mediocre vertical lines that are not really lines and threads, and also no really horizontal things. It just becomes like a bowl of things, because it's, you can't properly weave it together, because it's just like a diagonal with a diagonal or something, or a diagonal with a vertical. And so it doesn't really still like get you to the point of that ultimate satisfaction, that ultimate bliss. And it's for this very reason that yeah, Tantra offers a really beautiful perspective on sexuality, and there is obviously a lot to learn for people. So there's nothing wrong with these sexual teachings, and I love teaching sexual education from a tantric perspective because I think it's very much needed. All of that information like gave me so many aha moments of like, oh my god, there's nothing wrong with me. Oh my god, I always sensed this kind of, but I couldn't put it into words. Or, oh, this is how men work, this is how women work. This makes so much sense. So I love that. And at the same time, to give credit to tantric teachings, there is more to it than just the sexuality part. And so, just to add a little side note, what I find important, because specifically of this mix and match with sexuality, is that also a lot of teachings are out there in the name of Tantra, which are not per se Tantra. And that's where things can get confusing because then people end up at some sort of training or whatever really sex focused, thinking that is Tantra. And then, I don't know, things come up or it doesn't feel as supportive as they hoped it would be, or like they listen to this podcast and like, well, that wasn't really what you kind of were describing. So what is important here is that you always really allow yourself to ask questions to the teachers. I always welcome that a lot, of like really sharing of, okay, how does this space look? For example, in all the trainings and teachings that we organize in person, there is never sex in the group room, for example. Any really intimate exercises are in general only done in couples training, so specifically designed for couples, where you have to come with a pre-selected partner basically, and you will always practice these methods in the privacy of the same with often a question around nudity. Do we have to be naked? So there is never an obligation to be naked. Many of the practices are actually not designed to be naked, and at the same time we really don't have a problem with nudity. Yeah, there might be a practice where that is invited, but it's always has a specific intention. For example, we have a meditation with a caress, which is best done on the naked body. And so, yeah, we might demonstrate that really as the method is in the group room. But again, the method might be practiced there, but you don't have to be naked at all. You can practice that meditation in the privacy of your own bedroom, fully naked. So there's never that obligation. But for example, when we specifically work with nudity, the intention there often is to actually create a different imprint for your body, because we accept the whole body. We don't just accept the whole body except for the genitals. Or very often what happens in the message that we get is like, if we get a massage, we, and this is, people often have this question also of what is Tantra massage. It's a topic for a whole nother episode, I guess. But the general concept is that you would treat the body as a whole, meaning that if you go to a normal massage therapist, you often have to keep your underwear on. And I experience always this awkward thing that happens with it trying to cover up your breasts. And then I'm like, feels more awkward, and you'd probably just like removing the towel and just massaging around it, even though you're not touching the breast. But that's not touching the breast, not touching the genitals. And now when we're having sex and we're naked, then often we touch the genitals and the breasts, but not anywhere else of the body. And so if you think about it, what kind of message does that give to your system? Well, that basically gives the message that you are divided, that some parts are good and bad in different situations. Instead of just like, hey, your whole body is accepted, your whole body is loved and embraced. Every part of you is welcome. Every part of you is sensitive, can be pleasurable, but also can be seen as completely non-sexual. So yeah, that around like nudity, but never required. And so, but these are kind of like principles that we have within our school, within the way that we teach. And so when you're thinking about going to a tantric training, like always check on, where the teachers come from. Is there a reference that you can get? And really allow yourself to ask questions. Like, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Anything that could be on your mind, please ask. Because often what I'm noticing, I can take away so many misjudgments or misexpectations that I just know your mind makes up because of what is out there about Tantra and what we get to see most often. So it's okay. And in order to be safe and to create these or to find these safe spaces to practice these methods, this is really essential. So that's just a little side note that I wanted to give, which then brings me back to a little method or a tantric meditation around sexuality. How could that look? Now, one of these exercises I find super, super beautiful, and again, it taught me a lot, which was around understanding my desires, allowing myself to ask for what I want, to learn to express my yes, my no, getting to know myself better, my body better. Really allowing myself to receive, but also really being in a space of devotion and giving, and really, really focus on that. Because, for example, many patterns or things that we're stuck in within sexuality is based around performance. Often we're only focused on, I need to give, I need to do something, I need to get somewhere, I need to reach something. And we barely focus on just purely being present with our partner or even with our own body. We are often afraid to communicate what we really like, whether that comes from an insecurity of being rejected, or whether that comes from an insecurity of, or a shame around a certain desire, whatever that is. We often are more in like a mind-based experience than really in a super joyful, easy, open, orgasmic, pleasureful sexual experience that just feels like playing an innocent instead of just like grinding and getting somewhere and performing and doing the thing. And so one of the methods, and something I so highly recommend if you have a partner, but you can also start sensing this within yourself, within your own self-pleasuring, is completely letting go of any kind of goal. Completely letting go of any kind of goal. So not like, basically the method being okay, in this session, we're just going to be focusing on just following the energy, following what's really alive, staying really true, not getting into any kind of goal of reaching some sort of orgasm. So that can be actually a method within itself or a practice. But specifically, this meditation is called the desire exercise, where basically one person will ask for what they desire and what they would like to receive, where the other person then tunes in. Is that something I'm willing to give and able to do and devote myself to for you, or not? And when the answer is yes, you play with it, you act it out, you experience it, and the other person keeps tuning in. Is this really how I would like to receive it? Do I need to fine tune anything? If the answer is no, then it's like, no, I cannot offer this to you right now. Is there anything else you would like? And so getting comfortable with allowing yourself to be really okay with saying a no, but also learning to receive a no and being like, wow, okay, instead of taking it personal and seeing it as your rejection, learning to see that it's like, okay, that person is taking care of themselves, honoring and respecting themselves. And so I can sense, okay, what else would I like to receive in that case? And so it's an exercise as simple as this, which could take literally like 15 minutes per person. It doesn't even have to be sexual. You can do it intimately with your partner, but you can also do it with a friend and not per se have super like intimate practices, but it might be a cuddle or a hug or a massage or whatever. Again, it's like you'll learn also to tune in, like, what do I actually really desire? What do I actually need? Because very often we don't really listen to our own body. So a method and a meditation around this has, as I mentioned, helped me and given me so many insights. And again, it's completely different than the laughter meditation because they work with different topics. Like the one works around laughter and joy and playfulness and works with the topic of the emotions, but also with this helping you develop the skill of presence and acceptance, where the other one works really with desire and allowing yourself to really receive and give. So yeah, you have to ask for something and then you get to receive it. So, but you're not giving at all. So that's also very new for people, or just solely focusing on giving and devoting, not being a space of trying to take or get something for yourself. And so it works on a very different aspect. It might work on your sexual desires or more intimate desires. It helps to learn it works with the topic of communication. So again, very varied, the kind of methods that are being practiced, which makes it endless and timeless, because both of these exercises I still do regularly, both of these meditations, and I still get something new out of it every single time. Okay, then I'm gonna finish up with a last few final notes, which I think is really beautiful to share about what Tantra is really about. And personally, something that is really close to my heart, has really made an impact for me, was this aspect of really honoring both men and women, or the masculine, the feminine, equally, where these days what is happening a lot, specifically, for example, in the feminist movement, is that we start creating this idea or this charge around, okay, it's now time for men to, or for women to be equal to men. And so trying basically to get everything equalized. And not that I'm against equal rights, obviously not. Like, it's amazing that the feminist movement was there, and it achieved so much, and we did more and more get equal rights. And at the same time, what I'm seeing happen now more and more and more is that instead of actually valuing what women and the feminine is about, it just becomes like a battle of completely being equal and the same. And to me, that it's like kind of pointless, because through this effort, what starts happening is that we lose ourselves as women almost more, because it's not really that the system has changed in the sense that we now value feminine principles or values, really. It's like, no, women have just become good at a lot of the masculine principles and values. And sometimes we as women almost become more like men than men themselves. And men have started to become really afraid of being men, because that's being blamed and shamed so much, that men start to become actually more feminine. And so here we start creating a dynamic where women become more masculine, men become more feminine. Then women start saying, but where are the real men? Why isn't he leading me? And then not seeing that it's actually dynamic we are creating ourselves. Of course, we can say, well, but the other ones can change. The men can do the work to be more masculine, and that will help me be more feminine. But in the end, it's a team effort. We need to do this together. And the only thing that you can control or do something about is yourself. So if you're desiring a man to lead you, to take control, to be more in his masculine, you'll have to show up more into your feminine. You'll have to connect and understand what that's really about. So, and also start to learn what men are really about, learning to love and understand men. And through that, he will be invited and inspired to be in his masculine for you. So I often say to women when they're saying like, but why isn't he leading me? Well, I'm asking them, are you making it fun for him to lead you? Like, are you inspiring? Are you the feminine flower, the beauty, the radiance that he would like to lead and protect? Or are you like a gray, numb, dark block of rock that's not moving and trying to control and fix and case that he's trying to has to push and force around in order to get you somewhere? That's not really inspiring, not very easy also to do that. And so the beauty about these tantric teachings, and something I've been diving into myself a lot, is really this honoring of both men and women, really learning to see that as women, we have a certain superpower. As men, we have a certain superpower. And I believe strongly that if women really allow themselves to be women, if men really allow themselves to be men, and again, that doesn't mean that you're only feminine or only masculine. Both men and women have inner masculine, inner feminine. But if we start to really learn what we're about, how our system works, how our instinctual nature works, how our energetic system works, if we really allow ourselves to be in our true essence, in that fulfilled state where we balance out within ourselves our own inner masculine, inner feminine, and through that becoming our own little bubbles or our own little being, then we become, again, those two beautiful opposites that are just designed to fit like lock and key. Then we can bridge and merge and weave us together. And that's where we find the ultimate truth. That is the same, that's the meaning of one of the meanings of the word Tantra, but also imagine if that's being applied to men and women, to relationships. And this is why I'm so grateful that at the very beginning of my relationship with Modestus, we dove into the soulmate training, and he invited me to join him for that training within the first 5 weeks, because it really, really created a foundation for a type of relationships that I could only have dreamed of, that I could like sense, because often we can sense this ultimate truth, like our being wants to get back to that, but often we just don't know how to get there. And basically tantric meditations give you tools to get there. And that's so freaking empowering, because now we end up in a fight, but instead of me just having to wallow in that fight and not understanding and trying to analyze and change through thoughts and like theory, now I know what to practice. Like I know what to actually do. Let's practice this tool, and I know what will be on the other end. That is a new sense of love, of connection, of this ultimate bliss and truth feeling that happens through practicing these meditations, not just with yourself, but also when you practice it with a partner. And so I really envision a world where instead of us trying to be equal, we just accept and love our differences, see those as a superpower, and instead have tools and ways to bridge them, to become an actual team, to bring them together within partnership, but also within your own being, weaving together your own inner masculine, your own inner feminine, to find this ultimate truth feeling within yourself. And through that, I really, really believe that this world would completely change and have a different flavor, and doesn't have as much war and conflict and drama as it has these days. So with that being said, I hope that this gave you a little bit of a peek and an insight on what Tantra really is about, what Tantric meditations are, how to potentially practice it. And mainly, I hope it inspired you to be curious about it, to want to learn more, to actually practice them. And if that's the case, I would love to invite you to put yourself on the wait list for my next amazing, beautiful offering that is coming up, called the Feminine Legacy Academy. It's this place which I'm creating where I'm gathering all of these methods, all of these teachings, all of these learnings that I've gathered over the past years, starting with connecting to my body, really learning about what it means to be a woman, connected to my cycle, to understanding my emotions, working with love, healing patterns around relationships, to really learning to understand what men are about. And so this academy is specifically designed for women, to get the tantric teachings designed specifically for them. But at the same time, there will be a lot of teachings as well, which can be applied in relationship, in business, in daily life, with your kids, you name it. Because one thing I didn't mention is that Tantra is also called a householder's spiritual path, meaning that it basically invites you on a path of transformation and self-development, which is not that you have to like renounce yourself, shave your head, and go meditate in the cave for the rest of your life. No, it actually is something that you can practice in a householder's life, in a worker life, in a life with a family and kids, and a relationship and a partner and a job, and using all of these experiences, everything that's present in your life, as the portal into growth, as the portal for meditation, for more awareness, for creating the sense of ultimate bliss and truth. So not denying or having to change or press that away. You can start wherever you're at right now. So it doesn't, in that sense, it doesn't really matter. And so anyways, bringing it back to the Feminine Legacy Academy, which is in creation, full-blown creation mode. You can put yourself on the wait list to be the first to know more, to receive the best offer, and yeah, just to receive all the information there. And I hope to see you there. A second thing If you specifically want to learn more about Tantra within a couple and practice it together with your partner, then there is, first of all, an episode I would love to invite you to listen to, or two actually. One of those episodes is called How to Invite Him into Tantra. Those is for women that have a partner which might not be as motivated or excited yet to dive into that. And I explain in that episode why that's the case and how you might inspire him to join you onto this Tantra path. Another episode is what really happens at a couples Tantra retreat, about the soulmate training that I followed and following with my partner, which is specifically around creating this conscious relationship and partnership. There's an episode on that. And there is also a link to a wait list, or at least a group where you can put your email address. And when we host trainings in person, you'll be the first to be basically informed. We give the soulmate trainings, which are week long. We do bridge immersions, which are more weekends, but also really to bridge couples, a little bit more of an intro. And lastly, we have an online course, which is called The Bridge 3 Tantric Dates. So that is taught by me and my partner for couples specifically, 3 Tantric dates, which you have access to right now. So you could start straight away. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Now, before you tune out, if you felt inspired, enjoyed listening, had some beautiful insights, I would really highly appreciate it if you could leave me a 5-star review or share the episode with a friend or on your social medias. Also, as always, please feel free to reach out to me with any questions or anything you would like to share. You can do so on my Instagram at Dieketerweel. That is DIEKETERWEEL. Also, if you're curious on how to work with me, then make sure to check out the information in the podcast description. And for now, I hope to see you in the next one.